We're here at Ballydoyle, from where two legendary trainers have sent out no fewer than 12 Investec Derby winners between them. Starting with Larkspur in 1962, it's been home to Nijinsky, the Triple Crown hero of 1970, who's immortalised in bronze here behind me, and to the world-renowned champion sire Galileo, and it's been at the heart of some extraordinary performances on the Epsom Downs. We came along to try to find out what it is that sets Ballydoyle apart as an ideal centre for the conditioning of a thoroughbred racehorse for the unique challenge that Epsom poses. We talked to Aidan O'Brien as he readies this year's Ballydoyle Investec Derby contenders, spearheaded by the hugely impressive 2000 Guineas winner, Saxon Warrior. We also travel a few miles up the road to Coolmore to see how former Derby winners become successful stallions. And Michael Cannan shares his memories of the greatest stallion of them all, Galileo. Aidan O'Brien will celebrate his 22nd year at Ballydoyle this year. In that time, among a record haul of top-class prizes across the globe, this humble, unassuming genius has equalled the Epsom Derby haul of his predecessor, the great Vincent O'Brien, with 6 victories in the iconic race, more than any of his contemporaries. I began by asking Aidan what it is about Ballydoyle that makes it the perfect training centre for producing Derby winners.
I suppose, Don, everything in Dr. O'Brien's time and was geared towards the Derby. Everything obviously here is geared towards the Derby. Tattenham Corner, all the gallops. I suppose it was the be all and end all, and I suppose it was the measuring stick that all thoroughbreds were measured against, I suppose, and the Derby was absolutely top of the scale.
Yeah, and Dr. O'Brien sent out 6 Derby winners. You've sent out 6. We're on the 50th anniversary of Survivor's Derby win. Is it as important to you, the Derby, do you think, as it was to Dr. O'Brien back then?
I think it is. Like, obviously to John and Sue, Michael and Dorian and Gay and Derek, it's massive. I think the Derby is the race everybody wants to win. Like I said, it's the measuring stick for the whole thoroughbred race, really.
And why is that, do you think? Like, what does it test in a thoroughbred?
Yeah, I suppose it's the ultimate test. It tests them physically, mentally, the contours, the atmosphere, everything about it. The way you go to the start, the way you turn back and race against the hill, you race across the top, you race down the hill, then you race left and right in the straight, and then you race up the hill the last 50 yards to the post. So I think it's the ultimate test, Don, really.
And you talk a lot about the mind of a horse. Like is his mind tested, do you think, at Epsom?
Oh, it's absolutely tested to the limit. I think it's strung out. It's the atmosphere in Epsom is incredible. It's a very close theatre in the parade ring out onto the track, and then you have to go the 1.5 miles all the way to the start, the full track, which is very unusual. That doesn't happen very often. And then there's crowds at both sides. You stop at the top of the hill and you walk down the last 5 furlongs, which is very, very testing. I think the atmosphere in Epsom is unique, really, to anywhere in the world.
For you then, are you looking for traits in, let's say, the yearlings or the 2-year-olds when you get them that might make them Derby horses?
I think so. Like, obviously everything is bred to be a Derby horse. That's the ultimate aim, obviously, other than the sprinters. But the ultimate aim for every breeder is, I think, to breed a Derby winner. It's very, very difficult to do. Very few people do it, and like, it's serious bloodlines, top and bottom, for it to happen. But I think that is the ultimate aim. And obviously, when you have a horse with those classic pedigrees, it's the first thing that comes into your mind, really.
Once a Ballydoyle Derby winner has come to the end of his racing career, he generally makes the short trip across the road to here, Coolmore Stud. Coolmore has legendary status. It's one of the most dominant forces in the whole world of thoroughbred racing and breeding. And I've come along to talk with David O'Loughlin about Derby winners of the past and possibly of the future.
Now in the modern era, you have Galileo won the race in 2001, and he's sired 3 winners of it since. And like every year the race comes up, he's a big portion of the winners are now his sons, who are all emerging, the Frankels, the Intellos, the Australia's new approaches, etc. They're emerging now, so and they'll all have progeny in the race too.
And like, is it that the Derby begets the stallions, or it tests the racehorse?
The Derby begets the stallions, because the Derby is the greatest test of a horse, because other races are just about stamina and other races are just about speed, but the Derby is about both. It's a great combination. Like, a horse will not win the Derby if he does not have both.
And of course, Federico Tessio,
go back to him, the great man in the 30s who bred Niarco and all those other Rebo, those extremely influential horses on the breed. He always said the winning post at Epsom was the most important thing about the thoroughbred, and he's been proven correct, time and time.
And then back in the 70s, when John Magner and Vincent O'Brien were going to America, they were obviously looking for embryo stallions, but was the Derby to the forefront of their minds then?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Dr. O'Brien lived for the Derby, and at that time, the dominant stallions, the most valuable stallions in the world at that time were Nijinsky by Northern Dancer and Roberto, who'd been trained. Both of those were trained in Ballydoyle, and the first time they won it as a team was with the Minstrel in 1977, and that was a hugely influential race in the history of Coolmore. Coolmore probably wouldn't be here in its current shape without the Minstrel.
You think, really? Is that
well, it was such a
big?
huge deal.
Yeah.
When you think that he was sold for many millions, like, that's 40 years ago. Like, it had a huge impact. Like, the Magner family the boss was young at the time, and that gave him the impetus and the confidence to go on and develop this. And there was a horse beaten that day, a horse called Be My Guest, who was well back in the field. But he came here as a young stallion. I think he stood for about £6,000 at the time. And he was European champion sire with his first crop of 3-year-olds. He got a horse called Lassert, who didn't win the Epsom Derby, we won the Irish Derby and the French Derby, and he got on the house, won the Guineas. And his fee went up to 75,000, and a lot of the investors made money from that, and that they put into more horses, and it showed that we could have good horses here at Coolmore. And that was, Sadler's Wells came on just after that, and we were able to retire Sadler's Wells and syndicate him for a large amount of money. Like, back in 84, he was syndicated for an inordinate amount of money. He stood at 125,000 punts, and like, in that time, since then, the only horse that retired anywhere near that level was Frankel. He retired at 125,000 sterling, and that's nearly a 30 odd year gap. Yeah. So, like, it was a huge thing at the time, and it was a huge part of the history of Coolmore. And luckily, Sadler's Wells was such a fantastic stallion. Like, he obviously got Galileo, probably his best son, but he also got Monjou, who was a terrific sire of Derby winners. He side Pourmois, he side Authorised, and a lot of other good horses. Yeah. So the Sadler's Wells line, Northern Dancer line first of all, then the Sadler's Wells line, like, they proved to Epsom they could handle Epsom, and that was the catalyst for their success.
So your first was Galileo, and you hadn't had that many attempts at it before that, but Galileo, he was your only representative in the Derby that year. Like, what can you remember the build up to that Derby?
Yeah, I suppose obviously he was head and shoulders above everything. His work companion was Milan, and Milan won the Ledger, so we were very lucky obviously to come across him. Like, obviously he was by Sadler's Wells, obviously. He was out of a great mare. He came to us a very highly rated horse in Coolmore, probably the most highly rated that we've ever had. So everything, his movement, his action, his temperament, his will to win, he had it all. Mick used to ride him and loved him. I remember he only ran once as a 2-year-old because he was so genuine. He he trained himself too hard, kind of, we'd say. He went over the top twice or three times before he ran as a 2-year-old. And the reason was, every time you'd work him, he used to give so much, and then the next day he might be a little bit quiet and you'd have to give him a break again. So he didn't get to run until the end in a maiden, but I think he won his maiden 15 or 16 lengths, which was very unusual. You'd never see that happening in a 2-year-old race. So we knew he was very special from a very early stage. We thought that he was going to be a due horse, but we just didn't get him right in time, you know. But very unique horse, really.
And then you ran him in the Bally. He won the Bally Sacks,
Yes.
and then the Derry Derby Trials. So,
Yes.
and he went into the Derby as favourite. So you must have gone to Epsom with high hopes.
Yeah, obviously hoping. Like, obviously, you could never be sure. We, like you said, it was our first Derby winner. Listen, so we were obviously hoping and dreaming, but like, obviously that's all it was. We couldn't believe it could happen. But I remember, I think Seamus won the Derrinstown on him. He was very happy, and Mick was always full of him as well. So Michael Canan rode him in the Derby. But he a very special horse, Don, really. He travelled brilliant through the race, down off of the hill, and he exploded halfway down the straight and just stretched clear.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you remember that race? Do you remember watching the race?
Oh, I do. I remember every stride of it. Yeah, and I remember the way he changed and when he changed and the minute he lengthened, and like, it was just incredible, really.
And at what point did you think Jenny Mac were going to win the Derby?
I know, I never thought that, and I never would think that until I gone by the line.
Right.
Because I've seen so many things in racing, unless they're over that line,
Yeah.
you can never be sure, because anything can happen. But he was in a great position. He settled great. Mick had him very balanced when he straightened up, and I knew going down to the two, like, what Mick said what he was going to do, and it was all going according to plan. And when he released him, like, he really did stretch.
Of all the horses I've ridden around Epsom, like, if you want to pick a horse made for Epsom, was him.
Really?
Yeah, not over big, beautifully balanced. He was like riding a motorbike around there. He was just never took one bad step, and from the first corner you could pick him as the winner, and as I was riding him, you just knew it just was going according to plan. It wasn't over big field.
Yeah.
Had him in a lovely posse. He was just coasting. It's one of those few you're able to really enjoy.
Really?
Yeah, because it was all just plan A, and there wasn't even a hint of P or C, you know. So it was just seemed to go in slow motion. Everything you wanted to happen was happening, and it was just move when you wanted to move, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, an exceptional Derby horse he was,
Yeah.
as he's proven now. It's
Absolutely,
a
yeah.
stallion.
So what was that like winning the Derby?
Yeah, listen, it was the most unbelievable, I suppose, a surreal experience, really. We never could have dreamt that it could happen. When it happened, it was a massive sense of relief and delighted for everybody, really. Like, everybody had put a lot of faith in us, and they kept Galileo back, and they led him into us here in Ballydoyle. And at the time, the lads had horses all over the world. They had them in England, France, and they still have. But I suppose the quality horses, the real top quality horses, weren't coming to Ballydoyle. So he was the first of them. So we were very grateful and felt very privileged, really.
And you say relief, more so than ecstasy or excitement of having won it. It was more relief, was it?
I'd say it was, and it was obviously excitement, but I think with all those things, the intensity training up to those races is massive. Because if it's not like that, things can go amiss, and everyone is not focused. Like, and the reality of focus, like, there has to be intensity involved for focus to be proper, if you know what I mean. So that's the way it was, but it was absolutely joy and relief and delighted and all those kind of things. But I suppose the biggest thing was relief, and that it did happen, and I suppose a sense of satisfaction for everybody that was involved, really, at the time.
How important was Galileo's win in the Derby?
I often look back at that weekend, because we won the Oaks the day before with Imagine. And we won the Derby with Galileo, and it was in the early days of Michael Tabor and Derek Smith. But that kind of weekend showed that, without being arrogant, we were doing something right. Like, we have this farm in Tipperary, and we had the Rudmar band, and we had our owners and partners. The Nagels were involved in Imagine as well. But we showed that weekend we can produce the best horses here, so we're doing something right. So, and then to get him back here to stud.
Yeah.
Like, he was bred and reared here in the farm, and he spent all his life in Tipperary, and to get him back here, at the time he came in at a big fee for the time, but he got plenty of support from the start, and thankfully he took over from Sadler's Wells, who was getting old at the time. He would have been 21, I think, or 22 when Galileo came in. So the timing was fantastic. We were very lucky that the timing was so good.
Going before that race, like Galileo, he was shaping up to be obviously a superstar racehorse, but to be the stallion that he has become, I mean, that was, nobody could have imagined that.
No, it's beyond, like he was always a special looking horse. Like, it's a much exaggerated term, very good looking, but he really was very good looking. The most incredible head, the most incredible body movement. Like he was a horse that caught everybody's eye. And in fairness, he was out of a great mare, Urban Sea. Like she went on to breed another Epsom Derby winner, Sea the Stars, who's turned out to be a very good stallion too. She won the Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe. She was a special mare, so he had all the credentials. But like a lot of things, like we can all have all the credentials. It doesn't always happen, but he had everything going to stud, and the timing was good. And even with all that, like his fee dropped for all, his fee, he was down to nearly 30,000 by the time he had runners.
Why was that?
It's just the way the market fluctuates. Like breeders will jump in the first year. There's less risk the first year, and come the fourth year, like there's a bit more exposure. If he doesn't work, the breeder will be left holding the baby, so they're a bit more cautious. And but look, at the same time, he always covered a lot of mares, so a lot of people believed in him.
He's very easy to handle. He's very quiet, very laid back horse, just like his father was, Saddler's Wells.
Did you look after him as well?
I looked after him as well, yeah, I did.
But what are the similarities between them?
Their temperaments are very similar. They're both laid back, eager to please. They're good to do their job in the covering shed, and both fertile horses. Very easy to work with.
Yeah, he looks really, really, really quiet there. You could put anybody beside him, and
he's very laid back.
Like me, for example. So what would his daily routine be now?
His daily routine, he's exercised twice a day. He doesn't get out in the paddock.
Right.
He's exercised morning and in the evening again. He's walked for about 45 minutes in the morning and roughly the same in the evening. The difference in the evening, he gets a pick of grass as well. He's handheld, he's grazed. Yeah. So that's basically his routine all the time, and you need a good temperament for that type of thing. He doesn't get out.
And like when he won the Derby, was that a really good day for celebration?
It was, because he looked like a really good Derby winner when he did win. But we couldn't wait to get him to stud, really, to be honest. To see what his progeny were going to be like.
And like, were you looking forward to the day when he would come here? I suppose first of all hoping that he would come here, and probably thinking that he would.
Well, that's it. Well, we knew he would come here, after those race wins. But it's the same with all the horses that come here to stud. We when the racing career over, it's a new chapter for them, and we look forward to that chapter of their life then. Yeah,
and then like when he started having foals, was he stamping his foals from very early on?
Well, he was. You can pick them out. You can pick out the same as you could, the Saddler's Wells. You can pick those out in the paddock. You can really, so. He passes on everything nearly to him, he does.
Yeah, but even when he started there, like, he couldn't have believed that he could be as good as he has turned out to be, could you?
No, not really. Like, Saddler's Wells was a phenomenon himself, and then to get a second one straight after was, it's nearly too good to be true. It's hard to believe that it happened again. We're kind of so lucky that we kind of get immune to it, really. We expect everything that comes in now to be a kind of a super sire, because we're so used to having these types of horses,
Could you have imagined that he would be the stallion that he has become then?
I suppose he had a great pedigree, top and bottom, and he had that unbelievable determination that you very rare see in horses other than his stock. And if you see him, he always raced with his head fully out and down, so there never was another inch to be given. At the end of a race, you always had to be very careful with him. It obviously took us his whole 2-year-old career to learn how to train him properly, but he was so genuine. Like, he gave all. Like, there was 99% of horses will hold back a bit, but he held back nothing, and to the last day he raced, he gave all. There was no tomorrow with him. Like, an incredibly genuine horse, and that's one of his strongest traits that he passes on, his mental trait, and that doesn't happen only very rarely, really.
And obviously, like, you've done brilliantly with sons and daughters of his as well through the years. You obviously love them and love training them.
Yeah, no, listen, obviously John has done an incredible job, and Sue with him, and the Magner family and all the lads, and Michael and Doreen that owned him, and I think Derek and Gay weren't here in him at the time, but they've done an incredible job with him. They've minded him and brought the right bloodlines to him, and recognised what the bloodlines that suited him, and incredible, really. Like, it was absolutely masterclass, really.
So the following year in the Derby, then you had the 1-2 High Chaparral and Hawkwing.
Yeah, that's right. Two different type of horse. High Chaparral obviously was by Sadler's Wells as well, and Hawkwing was by Woodman. So that was incredible too. Hawkwing was just beaten in the Guineas. Looked a little bit unlucky. High Chaparral had won the 2 trials on the way and won the Racing Post, so they were incredible days too. The ground came a little bit on the slow side, and it suited High Chap more than Hawkwing on the day. Mick picked Hawkwing when the ground was good, but then the rain came and Johnny was on High Chap. So, and Johnny knew that the way to expose Mick was to stretch him early, and obviously that's what he did. He set sail at the top of the hill. A very strange thing he did, but that was the winning of the race. Mick followed him all the way down into the last furlong, and then Mick's stamina limitations just kicked in, and he just got him. But it was a brilliant ride out of Johnny on the day, you know, incredible. And Mick gave the other horse a brilliant ride, but just Johnny knew how to expose him really.
He was an amazing horse. He had some turn of foot, and it was interesting. He was over Darshan Mare. He's bred by Sean Coughlin, who also bred Indian Reach. So, but he had a terrific turn of foot, you know. And he like Hawkwing looked all over the winner, and Hawkwing was a fantastic horse. He won the Eclipse on his next start, but he mowed him down, and they were 12 lengths back to the third horse, who was a very good horse, Moon Ballad. Like, it was a terrific race.
I remember walking the track with Michael, and obviously Michael wasn't in Hawkwing, but Michael owned it half of High Chaparral. So obviously Michael was hoping that John and Sue were 100% in Hawkwing. So I remember walking the track with Michael, and we knew that the ground was gone on the soft side. It was going to suit Michael's horse better. So, but John and Sue didn't mind because they were in boat anyway, you know. So it was incredible. But I suppose the way the weather changed, it went High Chaparral's way more than Hawkwing's, you know. So, but we were delighted for any of them to win, and when they came down the straight together, like, it was incredible, really.
Camelot then. 2012.
Camelot was a very special horse from day one. He arrived very early as a 2-year-old, earlier than we wanted. We had to give him a break, and then he came back for the Racing Post Trophy. Won very impressive. He was a very natural horse, very quick horse. He was very genuine as well. Joseph won all his races on him. Went to the Guineas. I think he was the only Manchu ever to win a Guineas. Then went to the Derby, and remember Joseph saying he was going to ride him the same way. He put him asleep out the back, and he came out one swoop down the outside, and listen, the rest was history. He was a great horse, very natural, very clean-winded, very brave, real middle distance horse, you know, even though he won a Guineas. So we're looking forward to his progeny.
And was he different? Obviously he was a Guineas winner.
Yes. Different
to the Derrenstown Ballysacks route that you'd gone with the previous 2. Like, so was he a different type of horse?
He was, yeah. He had crosses of Dane Hill and King Mambo in him, as well as Manchu, and you'd see all the traits in him from both of those lines. He was quick. He was like, the way he won the Racing Post, he came from out the back. He was asleep, and he had a 1-2 strides. His acceleration was brilliant, really. You know, which made him very special.
And was it extra special for you, the fact that Joseph was riding?
Oh, it was, absolutely. Joseph was very young at the time. I think he was only 19 or something, same age as Donegal when he won the Guineas. So it was very special, really. It was something that we couldn't believe could happen, but it happened, and this was an incredible day, really.
And he's his first crop at 3. He's a couple of possible candidates for the Derby, but there today now, he's the leading sire of 3-year-olds in Europe today. So he's actually ahead of Galileo. Just on current 3-year-old crop, he's actually ahead of Galileo. Now, that might change in the next week or 2, but he's showing a lot of promise, and he gets a big, good-looking, scopy horse that very, very, very much fill the eye, what people want to see. And he's having it like nearly every week, every day in the month of May, he's had a winner of some sort. So I think they're just coming to their own, and he looks really, really promising.
Your 4th Derby was Ruler of the World, again a Chester Vase winner, so a little bit different again.
Yeah, Ruler of the World. We thought he was a good 2-year-old, but we didn't get him out. He had a little problem, and he didn't race then until maiden the spring of as a 3-year-old. He won his maiden very nice. I think Joseph won on him and always liked him. And then he went to Chester, won the Vase, won very easy. And Ryan wasn't riding first jockey to us at the time, but he was the horse Ryan got on. And listen, he the same thing, stayed well, quickened well, galloped home well, a very good pedigree, you know, so by Galileo. So he was very special, really.
Then Australia, he was another really impressive
very
winner.
Special horse. Australia always was, unbelievable mind. He He was really relaxed, very determined. He was more relaxed even than his dad, Galileo. Galileo was a bit sharp and could get worried and get upset about things, but Australia wouldn't. He was the only horse we ever had out of thousands of horses for 20 years that had no fight or flight response on his heart. Which that meant was, if he was in the wild, he would have no reaction to any predator. So with him, if you put him into first gear, he stayed in first gear. If you put him into second, he stayed in second gear. For a jockey, Joseph always said he was a jockey's dream. Like, he was no way influenced by anything around him, only by what the jockey told him to do, which was a very rare thing. But unbelievably genuine, you know. So listen, he won very impressive Derby winner as well. Just beaten in the Guineas. He was just drawn on the wrong side, came flying again, but he was a great horse, and hopefully we think is going to make a great stallion.
Australia is probably the best horse we've had to win the Derby since then, you know, and he's a very exciting horse, and he's an unusual horse because his mother, Ouija Board, won the Oaks. Like his father won 2 Derbies, his mother won 2 Oaks. It's very unusual.
Yeah.
But he's a horse we'd have great hopes for.
Yeah.
He's jumped every hurdle so far. He reminds you a lot of his father, the temperament. He's an incredible temperament. He's a very relaxed horse, very, very calm. And he was a very tough, genuine racehorse. Like Galileo, he never had a bad day at the races. He never disappointed.
And then your last year, Wings of Eagles, first, Cliffs of Moher.
Yeah, listen, Winds of Eagles, we had 4 or 5 horses ready to go, and Winds of Eagles was the 5th. He was working brilliant. So with the same thing, like, would we let him run or would we not? And then everyone was of the opinion, listen, he was born, bred and reared to be a Derby horse, and the same thing, like, do we give him a chance of doing it or not? And obviously Cliffs of Moher was the main horse, and Padraig ended up getting the instructions was to follow Cliffs of Moher, and it worked out perfect for him. But he was a very good horse. And like, he went through the Irish Derby with a fracture, a very bad fracture, and still was just beaten by like some two great horses on either side of him, you know. So listen, it was obviously a dream for Padraig, rode him, and the people that bred him, people in France where he's standing now. Listen, he was a very good horse.
What would it mean to you to win another Derby?
Sure, listen, Don, it would be incredible, and it's something that you don't dream of because you're always afraid to dream about it. But you work hard day in, day out, keep everyone as focused as possible, and you cross all the I's and dot all the T's, and you control as many variables as you can all the way along the line, and then you hope that sometimes it might happen, you know. But that's all you can do. But I suppose we keep focused the best we can and keep doing our best every day.
It's Galileo, he's left them toiling, it's no contest. Galileo, a brilliant winner of the Derby. High Chaparral by a couple of lengths from Hawkwing, and High Chaparral goes on to win the Derby.
There's the line, the father and son combination of Joseph and Aidan O'Brien won the Investec Derby with Camelot. It's ruler of the world for Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore who lead the Derby field up to the line, and it's ruler of the world who won the Derby. It was written in the stars, a day of destiny, and Australia follows in her parents' footsteps and wins an Epsom Classic.
Cliffs of Moher, Wings of Eagles swooping though, and Wings of Eagles gets up to win.